Hey everybody, welcome back. Today is the first episode of a new show on the channel. We're calling this, at least for now, the light side random reactions. Every once in a while something will pop up in my news feed that doesn't really classify as something I would put under music reactions, and it's not something I would put under reaction reviews. And so I found one of those today. This just came up 3 hours ago in my feed. Artist Scott LoBaido creates a Trump painting in real time at Madison Square Garden rally. And so this is, of course, in New York City at a Trump-Vance campaign event. And boy, that sounds interesting to me, to see somebody create a painting in real time. So let's go ahead and check this out. Scott LoBaido, and let's see what we come up with.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage artist Scott LoBaido to do a live painting.
Okay, this is gonna be cool. Okay, this is from October 27th, which is today, as of the time I'm doing this reaction. When you see it, it'll be later, but I'm recording this on the 27th. So this would have just been a few hours ago.
I gotta say this. There's a lot of creative conservatives out there who've been in the closet all these years. I came out of that closet 40 years ago, and I got a lot of hell for it. But now, you creative conservatives, it's a new world. Come out of the closet and get the balance back.
Okay. That's a good message there. I'll talk about that a little bit later.
To find my niche in the art world. And the art world didn't like me because I came from this place called Staten Island. Do I hear Staten Island in the house?
I can hear it in his voice. He's got that New York accent.
Like me because I like God, girls, and guns.
I haven't heard it phrased like that before.
Like me because I refuse to succumb to the America-hating isms of their agenda. And they said I'd never make it in their world. Fast forward 35 years, I'm standing on the greatest stage in the world. In the greatest city in the world. In the greatest country in the world. And I'm opening up for the greatest president in the world.
The New Yorker's coming out in him. That's where Trump gets it. It's a New York thing.
Before I create this piece of art, I would just like to give the art world a little something. I got it here somewhere. Oh, here it is.
Oh,
Bam!
I knew it. I knew that's what he was going to do. As soon as he said that, I knew he was going to do that.
New York, New York.
Oh, he pointed up. Was that a reference to For the Glory of God? I don't know. That's usually what that means when like a NFL player or something points up like that. Or other sports as well, you know, sports in general. This is going to be so amazing. As he starts, it's a blank canvas, and he's just painting random colors. They look just like lines and blotches. Oh, I see. Those are stars. He's going to make a flag. That's amazing how an artist, and I've done my, I love to draw, but I never could paint because I just didn't have the skills for it. I would draw all these great pictures in art class in high school, but then when I would go to paint it, I would just completely ruin it. And so I am fascinated and really impressed by the skills of painters like this. They can see these vivid colors in the picture in their mind, especially like this, to where it just looks like random as he goes, and at this pace, at this speed. And to put together something that is just turns out to be something just so beautiful and just amazing. He's adding in the oranges. I wonder what that would be. Okay, now he's using his hands. Blurring it together. Letting the colors mix. Oh, and then he peels off part. That's kind of cheating, I think. Okay, so he had an image underneath already. Now that is cool. Okay, the final product looks really cool. But yeah, kind of cheating, I think. I thought he was going to paint the whole thing right there. But yeah, he had that image covered up by a piece of something on the canvas. That, yeah, it looks beautiful as the final product, but again, it was just random splotches to make that kind of flag thing there in the background. And then, of course, the foreground, there's President Trump in black and white with his arms wrapped around, what is that, the Empire State Building? Very cool. Tribute to New York. Very cool. It looks nice. But once again, I would be more impressed if it wasn't just random, streaks that he was putting on there to make the flag. If he actually, in that period of time, did the entire image without having the hidden thing underneath to come out, I think would have been more impactful. But it's still impressive. It still looks great. So the guy's very talented. I think I've seen some other artists, I don't know if it was him or somebody else, do something similar on some of these talent shows. Like, I don't know if it was X Factor or America's Got Talent or Britain's Got Talent or something like that. But this isn't anything new. I've seen some other artists do something similar to that. Commenting going back to his comments that he had at the beginning. A little bit foul-mouthed. He's got that typical he's got that stereotypical New York kind of attitude, to where he just doesn't give a crap, and he's not afraid to speak his mind, and if you don't like it, then he gives you the what. And so I think that's where Trump gets a lot of his attitude from. It's that New York kind of, I don't care what you think attitude, I'm going to speak my mind. And a lot of people respect that. You might not agree with what he says. You may not like how he says it, but there's something to be said about people that will stand up for what they believe in and not back down. And New Yorkers are very famous for that sort of thing. And so I think that's where Trump gets a lot of his support from, is that people recognize that he's not your typical politician that will say one thing to one audience and turn around and say something to a different audience. That's a definite turnoff for anybody right there, for any voter. If they can't trust you to at least speak your mind and tell them what you think, then at least if you can do that, then at least they know that you're being honest with them and they know what they're getting. And they're not afraid of when the politician gets into office, they're going to break their campaign promises. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. I didn't vote for Trump in 2016 in the general election in the primary, because honestly, I'm a conservative. And I knew enough politically about Trump's history and his past that I didn't trust him. I didn't trust him as far as I could throw him. And you can tell by looking at me, I can't throw anybody very far. I could get in a fight with a 70, or I could get in a fight with Joe Biden, and Joe Biden would probably win. That's how out of shape I am, and that's saying a lot. But anyway, I didn't trust him because I thought he was. I didn't know enough about his personality. I just knew his record as far as the things he supported in the past. But he had changed. And so when he came on the stage, he was talking like a conservative and offering all these conservative views and things for his agenda. He was saying all the right things, but I just didn't believe him. So in the primary, I'd voted for one of the other candidates, and I can't remember exactly which ones I voted for during that specific primary, but because there's been so many primaries that you vote for your candidates that are on your ticket, and I can't remember which ones were running against him. I think it was Ted Cruz running against him in 2016, and I voted for Ted Cruz in the primary. But then when the election came, when it came down to the general election, then you're left with you either vote for the Republican or the Democrat, and you basically it comes down to the point of choosing the lesser of two evils sort of thing, and so you have to make your decision based on that. But in 2016, I didn't like Trump, and I didn't support him, and I didn't believe in him. But then he proved me wrong. When he won in 2016, the next 4 years, he kept his campaign promises. He went above and beyond all my expectations of him. And so when he ran again in 2020, suddenly he had my support because I knew that he was sincere. He was real. And whenever he said some of these crazy things, I didn't necessarily like the way that he communicated. I didn't like the way he talked. I didn't like his attitude about a lot of things. But when it came to policies, I agreed with all of the stuff that he was promoting. Well, not all, but I'd say 90, 95%. I agreed with all, pretty much most of the stuff that he was promoting, whereas I disagreed with the other candidate on 99%, Joe Biden, on 99% of what he was standing for. Or actually, it was Hillary Clinton in 2016. Well, and then in 2020 was Biden, of course. And then Biden ended up winning that election. And so he got my vote in 2020 because basically he's not the kind of person that I would want to sit down for coffee with. He's not the kind of person that I would probably hang out with and consider a close friend because our personalities are just so different. And kind of rubs a lot of people the wrong way, and I get it. But he's got that New York type attitude, and he's got that authenticity that most politicians don't have. And I think that is why he's so popular, despite that brash New York style attitude that he has, that devil may care sort of attitude, and a lot of the things that he's done in his life that are questionable, especially for Christians to be concerned about. But honestly, how many presidential candidates in the last 50 years are honorable as far as Christian principles go in their personal life? And so you have to sometimes weigh, well, what's more important, voting for somebody based on their personal life or based on the policies that they're going to enact for the betterment or the worsening of the country? And for a Christian, that's a tough call sometimes, how to make that decision. But anyway, I'm not going to belabor that point too much, but I think seeing him, this gentleman, see, what's his name again? Let me rewind a little bit. Scott LoBaido. To see him on the stage and making these comments the way that he does, and to recognize that that's a New York thing, I think it reinforces that whole idea of that's where Trump gets it from. And that's why he is so popular with so many people, is because he's real and he's authentic. For me, it's more of a policy thing. Now, one thing I am concerned with is the same thing I saw happen with George W. Bush, for example. His first term, he was excellent. He was a great president. But then once he got into his second term, he started to drift toward the left, I found. And some of his policies, he started compromising too much, I thought, with the left. In his second term, he seemed to start veering towards some policies that I disagreed with. And then after he's been, out of office, he's gone on to make some statements that kind of indicate that he may have shifted even further to the left since he's been out of office. And I find that a lot with politicians as well. When they serve their second term, sometimes they shift a little bit. And so I've seen that in President Trump and some of his stances as well. As far as his faith goes, he's a fairly new Christian. And so I understand when he starts talking about Christian values and stuff, and he doesn't exactly portray them in the exact way that it really is. For example, when you hear him talk about his faith, he once commented something about, I don't think I've ever asked God for forgiveness. I just try to be a good person and live my life the best I can. And I think that's good enough for God. Well, that's not the way Christianity works. We don't get into heaven based on how good we are. If that was the case, then none of us would make it into heaven, because no human is good enough to get into heaven. It's all about God's grace. And he doesn't understand that, or at least judging by his public comments on the subject, he doesn't fully understand what it really means to be a Christian. And I can't begrudge him that. I can't hold that against him, because he is a fairly new Christian. And I think with time, if he associates with the right people, that just like any of us, he's going to learn as he progresses in his faith journey, and learn a lot of these things about how it really works. And that might change some of his policies as well. For example, the abortion issue, his famous line that he's saying recently is, you have to follow your heart. Now, I wasn't one, we're going to get political here a little bit. I was not one that was extremely excited about the Dobbs versus Jackson decision that reversed Roe versus Wade. I was glad that it took some steps in the right direction, but by reversing it to the states, so the reason it goes back to the whole reason why you object to the practice, which in this case is abortion. And in my mind, based on the science of when life begins, this is scientifically proven. I've done sermons on this before, where you talk about the science and you talk about how medical science defines life, and when it begins and when it ends, and that sort of thing. I believe that it is a human, it is alive, and at that point when it is a human life, whether it's viable outside the womb or not it's irrelevant. Viability isn't part of the equation. It comes back to, is it alive? Is it human? And if it is, then it has an inalienable right under the principles of the founding of our government that God has given to all humans, that we have that inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I personally don't believe that there is any excuse for terminating that life. It's an innocent human life that's done nothing wrong. You can talk all you want about capital punishment and that sort of thing. You can apply that to somebody can forfeit certain rights that they have through their actions. But you can't fault an innocent unborn child for actions that somebody has taken, whether it be a rapist. That's why I don't believe in exceptions in abortion. I absolutely detest rapists, and I detest those that impregnate, family members through incest. These are terrible things. And if it came down to the choice between the life of the mother and the life of the child, I might consider that. But if you look at the statistics, it doesn't exist. There's no such thing. When you get into the third trimester to the point to where you're going to deliver that child and to do that late-term abortion, there is absolutely no case ever when you have to. I've never seen any evidence of it where you have to perform that abortion in order to save the life of the mother. You can deliver that child through cesarean section or whatever the case may be, however you do it, but you can deliver that child alive and save the mother without doing an invasive abortion surgery that would cause more damage and be more risky than if you just went ahead and delivered it. And so it's counterproductive. It's actually worse on the mother to perform an abortion in the late term for the so-called life of the mother, which a lot of times they consider it the health of the mother, which in medical terms these days, people just excuse anything as far as the health. They could say, for example, she's going to be depressed if she has that child and has to raise it, and so that's bad for her mental health. And so they'll say just because she doesn't want it, she's going to be upset, she's going to be depressed, and have these mental issues by having this child. They're going to use that as an excuse to, well, go ahead and terminate the child. I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. And so while I detest those things like rape, incest, of course, in those cases, like in the case of rape, sure, punish the rapist, but you don't punish the child. Going back to biblical principles where it talks in the Bible about the sins of the father is not visited upon the children. You don't punish me for something my father or my grandfather did. You don't punish me for my children for something that I did, or my grandchildren. I'm responsible for what I did, not what somebody else did. That's justice. And so when you subject an unborn child to capital punishment because of the crime that their biological father committed on their biological mother, that's not justice. That is injustice. And same thing with incest. As horrible as those situations are, punish the guilty, but not the innocent. And so I support women that are in those situations. I understand the horrible trauma that they're facing, but at the same time, they're going to have that trauma to deal with. If a woman has been through the situation where she's been raped or the victim of incest sort of thing, whether she delivers that child alive or has it aborted, she's going to have to deal with the stress and the mental, emotional damage that comes from that trauma. And so you don't want to compound it by adding the abortion to it. And whatever guilt may come later on from that, you've seen so many times at some of these rallies in Washington, D.C. in January that they have every year, where these survivors of abortion come up and speak, or whether these women who had abortions and regret them get up and speak, or the women who had the children that they had planned to abort but ended up having them anyway, and they're so grateful that they actually did go through with giving birth. You see it all the time, that trauma is going to be part of it, and yet when you have the abortion, when that's the solution, it adds more trauma on top of it. Donald Trump, the thing I disagree with him about this Roe and Dobbs sort of thing is his thing that he keeps saying is when it comes to abortion, you have to follow your heart. And I fundamentally disagree with that. You don't follow your heart, because the scripture tells us in many different places the heart is deceitful and man's heart is naturally wicked. And so our hearts will deceive us. If we follow our feelings, if we follow our emotions, if we follow our hearts, we're going to be led down the wrong path almost every time, because the heart of man is deceitful. You don't want to follow your heart. You want to follow God. And so that's where I disagree with him on that. But big picture, I have to, even though I don't agree with him 100% on that issue, I honestly agree with him more than I do with Harris on just about any issue. And so that's what it comes down to, is when you cast your vote, you have to determine, policy-wise, which candidate do I agree with more? And which candidate do I believe is actually going to support the policies that I believe in? And that's what you got to go for. Anyway, election day is coming up. If you're a legal voter, if you're actually qualified to vote, you're a citizen of the United States and of legal age, and you meet all the requirements, make sure you get out and vote. If you're not a legal voter, if you're not a citizen, if you're not old enough to vote, don't try to cheat. Don't try to mess it up for the rest of us. It's not one person, one vote. It's one citizen, one vote. It's one eligible voter per vote. And so that's where I disagree with the left is, it's not always just one person per vote because there are a lot of people that aren't qualified to vote. And so when you let people who aren't qualified, when you allow them to vote, that takes away the vote of a qualified voter, cancels it out. And that's unconstitutional. I don't believe in it at all. And that's another one of the issues that is influencing my decision on where I stand in this election as well. Anyway, sorry for rambling so long. Hope you guys have a great day. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, comment down below. Even if you didn't like it, comment down below and let me know. And we'll try to have a friendly debate and learn from each other. I include myself in that, learning from you. And we'll see you next time. Have a great day and God bless. Bye, everybody.